Hey there, you fabulous friends. Welcome to another episode of Kicking It with Camille. Today, we are going to be dumping. We're not dumping. Oh, man. Here we go. Already so soon in the... Ugh. Okay, anyway, we're going to be diving into the world of aging. So I'm your host, Camille Bransom, and I'm here to sprinkle a little bit of fun and a lot of heart into the conversations about the challenges that come with getting older, whether it's for you or someone you love. And together, we'll tackle these age-old questions. Pun intended, and share stories that will inspire, empower, and make us giggle a little bit along the way. So grab your favorite beverages, get comfy, and let's kick it. And hey, if you're loving what you hear, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the love. We want to hear from you too. Drop your conversations or drop your questions in the message box on the computer. Yep. Okay. And
Comment section.
Really struggling. Maybe we should start over. Okay. Anyway, so if you love what you hear, comment, send us your questions, and we'll do our best to get you an answer. So, all right, everyone, I'm super excited to announce tonight our special guest. Joining us is the brilliant Danielle Jackson, the creator of Respire Creative Counseling. Danielle is passionate about mental health and has a special focus on supporting aging parents who face memory-related problems. Today, we'll dive into some thoughtful insights and practical tips on everything to navigate these sensitive topics while keeping the conversation light and engaging. So grab your notebooks and let's get ready to hear from the expert. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, can't hear you.
You can't?
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Hey, there she is. Okay. So anyway, welcome. You know, I'm a little technology challenged, but I'm working on that. So
Me too.
Anyway, welcome. We're excited to have you here. So
Good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Danielle, kind of where you stand in your normal day-to-day life.
Well, I have 2 jobs.
Okay.
So I work a lot. I work at a higher level of care. So PHP, IOP, partial hospitalization,
Okay.
intensive outpatient, day programs for children, adolescents. I help out with the adult side of things as well.
Okay.
And then I have my private practice in the evenings, which is the Respire Creative Counseling.
Okay. Now you've done that for what, about a year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little over a year and a half.
And we're honored to have you at the Hub Shared Workspace.
Thank
so
you.
You can find Danielle there if you can get in her door. So welcome. And you're very passionate about this for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
So we know when we talk about this topic with the aging parents, we're really talking, for me, it stems from my most recent experience.
Right.
And with my mom having some memory problems and all the challenges that come along with that. So unfortunately, you had to watch a lot of that nightmare go down
Not
as I was coming out of the
unfortunate.
office. But you've been a great strength to all of us. So I know you have some great input with that. So let's see, where do you want to start? There's so many things.
Well, I think kind of something we were talking about. My parents are aging, and so I've been having conversations about them getting their details in order, so that when that time comes, we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Right. You want to do it while they're in a good state of mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and they travel a lot, so I'm like, if something happens, I want to make sure that we're all prepared.
Right. Well, and it's funny because when we were talking about that earlier, like, yeah, my parents are in their 50s. I'm like thinking, I could be your parent. I got to get it together. So no, we all want to get it together. So, and that's the main goal is providing some resources and some relief for people on both sides of the fence there. So, okay, very good. So, and then we'll kind of break this up into the patient and the caregiver, which is such a deep topic because it's so much easier said than done.
Fair.
You know,
Yeah.
super difficult to do. And I think that's why it's important that you understand we're building community around this. And that's going to be everything to somebody.
Absolutely.
So building that community for the caregiver and that sort of thing. And then there's even the aftermath of the caregiver when the situation with the parent changes indefinitely. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
there's so many things we can jump into. But now, did you say that you have a... no, I'm not going to say that. Okay, so anyway... Some key, I know, thank you, Taylor. If it wasn't for sound effects, I'd already jumped off the bridge. Okay.
No,
not
let's not
really.
do that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's bad. That's not even funny at all.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay. It was funny.
Okay, thanks. When we try.
We can have some dark humor. It's okay.
Well, we have to, or else it's never going to happen.
Exactly.
And Taylor, feel free to join us. And if you're joining us live tonight, we are on YouTube and Facebook now, so
Yes.
you can interact on both of those different platforms, whatever you see fit. And then I apologize, I did not see the comments from last week, but I think we have that remedied. So hopefully we will see all your comments of all that are watching and be able to help
For sure.
guide you. So, okay, and I think I totally interrupted you, Danielle. So you can
You did.
pick back up or we relead that conversation.
No, I think like when
Like the importance of creating those tools now when you can.
For sure. And then also, like, when things do start kind of like going downhill, or when you're noticing your parents are struggling, to start seeking support for yourself at the beginning.
Okay.
So that you're not in the middle of chaos and then not having that support system.
Yeah, you're just
I think that's
constant whirlwind.
Yeah.
No, that's really important. And when you talk about that, or when you talk about that with your parents, is it a challenge to even approach those topics with your folks and your family?
I'm actually super close with my family.
Okay.
So I was just like, hey, guys, y'all are getting older. I need y'all get things together.
Okay, very good.
And then, there's challenges with making sure that other siblings or family members that they're close with have whatever they want them to have, or deal with, whatever. So trying to navigate those kind of conversations were difficult.
Yeah, because with blended family, that sort of thing, it really makes things create some opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So, and I think that, being a person who could be a patient and a person who can be a caregiver, when it comes to my kid, I want her, I love her enough to do the hard stuff. And sometimes we just have to do the hard stuff, but nobody wants to talk about it. Hey, what happens when you die? What would you like to wear, Danielle? That's kind of morbid when you think about it like that. But at the end of the day, you want to please the person, and you want the people to know, out of respect for both people, when you have that communication like you guys do, it makes it so much easier.
Well, and it's funny because I guess being with somebody who is in the military, we've had those conversations.
Okay.
Now that he's not in the military, it's not a big deal, but we've just generally had conversations what would happen. So even in our 30s, we're having conversations about what we would like to happen, because you just never know.
Right. And unfortunately, it doesn't always just happen to an aging parent with a memory issue.
Right.
You can have tragic accidents. You can have all kinds of weird, it seems like we have more and more diseases, and more and more people are affected by memory, lack of cognition somehow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone gets dementia and Alzheimer's, but it seems as though everybody's dealing with at least a touch of it in their journey.
Fair. And I think that with different situations and lifestyles can also have, lifelong or longer term effects later on in life.
That's true. Well, and I'm not an expert. I'm not claiming to be, but they're referring to, or a lot of medical journals and things now are referring to dementia and Alzheimer's as diabetes 3.
Right.
So, an epidemic, a pandemic, whatnot. It truly is an epidemic, because it's not reversible. There are drugs that will help, but I think the reality is, because we're human, we fail to acknowledge or recognize it soon enough to really get ahead of the game.
Right.
So that's kind of my goal right now, is to help people get ahead of that curve, and so that it's not so difficult on everyone. So, okay. So that's, and when you talk about what other kinds of things would you be preparing for that you would need, that would be helpful to have in writing or decided?
Well, I think that if you have anything that you would like to give, right, material items, finances, whatever, to have, people that will go to. Yeah. Having those conversations with the people so that they know, but also have it in writing. Have it in writing, then, it's, they can't say, oh, well, I had a conversation with her about it.
Yeah, because you know what's going to happen, or you know what happens. Oh, no, she told me this. Oh, no, he told me this. Oh, no, that's not the way it was. Well, 20 years ago, it was this. Okay, well, we're not 20 years ago, and we're where we are, and no one can predict what's going to happen to them. So, and with a memory issue, and I find that there's so many solutions to help that situation if you're ahead of it. If you're not ahead of it, it's just kind of man, I wish I'd have known. And that's what we want people to avoid having to deal with.
Yeah. And I think when you are dealing with memory issues, having those in writing when they are more cognitive and, more self-aware.
Right.
So that when that does start slipping and they're just like, I don't remember what I said, they're easily influenced and whatnot. And so you want to make sure that that's taken care of.
That's a very, very good point. And, as emotions rise in a situation like that for a family, those who are not seeing the changes, if someone doesn't see you every 6 weeks,
right,
they're going to see a different side of this than that you see them every day.
Fair.
And in fact, every day when you see them, you may miss a lot of things because you are there every day.
Absolutely.
When you run into a friend who's changed their hair color, or lost a few pounds, or gained a few pounds, whatever. Right. Not that I tell my friends I've gained a few pounds. That would be terrible. But if you haven't seen them in a while, it's a more noticeable change to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, keeping in mind that there's that one person usually, or a few people who are, right beside them that they get embarrassed, and let's talk about the embarrassment and the shame that they feel unnecessarily,
Absolutely.
because that's horrible to watch.
For sure. I mean, just watching or viewing and seeing them want to present as normal, that nothing's wrong, and that stress that they perceive as trying to be perfect,
Right.
for, others that aren't seeing the day-to-day, right? They're not as comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's hard for the patient, but also the caregiver too, because that that's taking a toll on their mental health, their bodies, all of it.
Well, that sense of independence that they begin to lose, when whatever happens where they're not safe to drive anymore. And so that that liberty is shifted. And that, I mean, I can't imagine having taken care of yourself your whole life.
Right.
And all of a sudden you need people to take care of you, but yet you just can't face it.
Well, and I think our culture and our culture now is pushing for independence at such a young age.
Yeah.
So you have such a wide lifespan of just independence, and you kind of revert backwards
Right.
to adolescence and childhood, and then when you're infancy, right? You're going backwards in
full
time.
circle. Yeah.
It really is, and struggling with that. And so I've seen patients that have started that process of reverting back, and the arguments and the frustrations that, because I do family counseling and whatnot, and I'll see families that are like, well, Mom, you're not well. We need to be able to take care of you. And she's like, I can do it myself, and that's stressful on the entire family unit.
Yeah, it really is. And, and they want to protect themselves, and you want to protect them. So a lot of times it's not putting all their stuff on Front Street. Everybody doesn't have to know all the things, as long as you've got somebody you can count on. But as your memory changes, that you could become distrustful of your people that you've trusted your whole life.
Right.
So I think that's where it's important to do the journaling and do the documentation and the things where, you just want this person to participate. You want to enable them to be in their life as long as possible, because it's really hard not to say, no, I got this, you can't do this, I can do this.
Right.
And it's not about that. It's not what we can't do. It's what can we do.
Right.
And what can we do collectively, the more the merrier.
Absolutely.
It's like a child, not like a child, but like a child. I don't want to be disrespectful when I say that.
No, but I think it's giving resources or giving choices in the abilities that they have.
Right.
They're not going to be able to, you're taking a lot away, right? Just like kids.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
But in adults, aging adults, when they're starting, to go downhill, you're taking a lot of things away. So giving them the choices to do certain things that they're able to in a safe way.
Right.
Is important.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And then the people that care for the people, it's important that they are all included in everything that's applicable to them for the person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was something, my parents started, all of their paperwork and, whatnot. And they were like, hey, we're going to sit you guys down, and you're going to be the executor of the will, because we know you can handle the tough conversations. I'm like, what?
Right.
Why am I going to have to battle everybody?
One, right.
But then my little sister will have medical power of attorney, because they know when it's chaos, and, if they're, incapacitated, she's going to make the right decisions, because I'm just going to be like, no, I don't want to lose them.
I know.
And she's going to be like, no, it's okay.
Right.
So we're both equally holding stress, right? But it's not all on one person.
You bring a different value to the table,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. And that way all the responsibility for one thing doesn't fall on one person. And use the strengths of the people. I mean, that would be a strength of yours.
For sure.
Be a strength of hers. So there's no sense in, if you have the community,
right?
Use what you have. And then you can hire the rest if you're missing some pieces when it all gets down to it. But it's funny, because I think, when I was much younger, my parents would be like, well, when we're gone, we want this to happen. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about that. You're never leaving. You're never dying. You're not going anywhere. It's so ignorant on my part. But where you fast forward, boy, I wish we had endured those conversations sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't know if that because I am so used to having difficult conversations with my parents. Like my dad, I'm the debater with my dad, so he likes to.
You're not a debater.
No, not at all.
Okay, lively conversation. We'll say that.
But he likes somebody who will have the banter with him, and that's definitely me.
Okay.
And so I guess I grew up having the tough conversation. So I always knew, and his side of the family has Huntington's disease that runs through his family. So I was, aware of death and what happens. And my first funeral was when I was 5 for my grandma, his mom.
Yeah.
And so I always grew up around it. And so I don't know if that made it a little easier to be like, I know you're going to not be here one day.
Right.
And so having those conversations can be tough, especially like I take it not for granted.
Yeah.
I don't want to take it for granted, being able to have those conversations easily.
Right.
Because it is hard.
Yeah.
And even though my parents aren't, very old, he had, my dad had emergency surgery. And that was the first time I realized that, because me and him share a birthday, I was like, oh no.
He's not invincible.
Well, not that he's not just invincible, that like our birthday will never be the same.
Yeah.
Like, and I was just like, oh, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
And I had shared that with him on Father's Day, and he was like, I didn't think about that either. We always thought of it being something joyful, right? You're just never alone.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's rude.
Yeah,
You're going to leave me alone.
Exactly. No, that's a real deal because, I recently had a birthday, and this was the first birthday I've had since the person who brought me here,
right,
technically, was not here.
Yeah.
And that's a tough place to be. But there's a light on the end of that tunnel, depending on whatever you think about from here forward, which is a whole other topic. But you're lucky you're in a position where you can speak to your family. And we're going to get more into kind of spurring and starting those conversations with Dr. Stephanie. But until then, there's plenty of other stuff. When you look at, you can observe that your parents are in a good way right now. But in a matter of, for example, in our situation, my mom had seizures, and she was doing pretty well, considering with all the things she was dealing with. And a morning of a couple of bad seizures, and everything changed like in a nanosecond.
Right.
And so nobody saw that coming. Even though you see it coming, you don't see it coming.
Yeah,
for sure.
And
I don't know if it's more or less for us if we didn't want to face it, or we just weren't prepared, or we were just trying to be in the now. Because I think that's important too. When you see when you see that the end is near for a person's life, and near, 2 years, 5 years, whatever,
right,
you start living in the what do we got to get done that we didn't get done.
Yeah, you're living on the edge,
right? And so I think looking back, I'd rather have given more energy to the minute, to the now, than I would have had otherwise. So, when you, from a mental health standpoint, what are some of the first things we need to look for in a person that we care for, such as our parents, as far as their changes, where we start to begin? Something's going a different direction. What would be some things we think you could recognize?
I think if you're looking on the memory aspect, some people are just forgetful, right? It happens
right now.
You have ADHD, stress, whatever, trauma, brain trauma, the works. I think paying attention to patterns.
Okay.
And, so it's like you're constantly forgetting appointments, or now it's been like, you've missed, our normal breakfast that we normally have together. Right. That kind of thing, starting, be proactive, encouraging.
And you can journal too, take notes of that so you can see where your patterns
absolutely
start to repeat.
Yeah. And then making sure, pushing parents to have their checkups.
Okay. That's big.
Because you'll have, my dad, I started pushing my dad to do that. And he would go years without it. And I was like, no, even if
men are the worst about that too.
They are.
Yeah.
But my mom is too.
Yeah.
She's very like,
well, we're all human.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But she, pushing them to go to the doctor and make sure that everything's okay, staying on top of things.
And that's when I think it's helpful when your mindset can shift into not forcing them, but accompanying them, be with them, not because they feel like everyone's against them.
Right.
It's kind of like a teenager. And again, no disrespect, but we've got a couple of questions. Let's go to this. Bex is an awesome caregiver, and she's got a question. She says, what signs should you look for if you think your parent or resident may be mentally abused? That's I know Bex works in a facility where she's able to really make a difference there. And so that's a good question. What do you think?
It is. I would say if if the parent or the resident is becoming more guarded, having a hard time opening up,
secretive or like withdrawn,
skittish, they're flinching more, Because it could be mental abuse, it could be physical as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, or like the lack of care. So I think the mental part of it is a little difficult, but looking for that sign of withdrawal.
Right.
They're not wanting to talk.
Okay.
Or, you ask them like, oh, such and such nurse, and they start acting differently due to, a specific name or a set of workers,
Okay.
Whatever that daily schedule is or whatnot.
So really tune in and pay attention. And if you really suspect it, then get some specific topics to
Yeah, I think if you're
discuss.
just kind of recognizing that there's that skittishness or the nervousness or withdrawn, starting to like have those conversations like, hey, what's going on? Kind of pushing respectfully.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that recognizing that and addressing those things are probably another show in itself. But,
Fair.
I noticed that when people begin to fall a lot, they start postponing the plans with you. So they want you to see the bruises. That was one thing that I noticed, that there was no particular reason that we would change what we would normally do. And all of a sudden we're being put off. And then it's like, that's when you've got to push a little bit harder. You go, well, I'm coming by anyway. I've got something for you anyway.
Exactly. When they start withdrawing, being distant.
I appreciate that you've already had dinner and you've already don't need me.
Nope.
And that's fine. I just wanted to come by,
Right.
or I'm coming by. And I think the less surprises, the better. You just got to be kind and assertive, I think, when you're addressing those things.
Yeah, I think it's being respectful and not taking certain no's for, not being more present.
Right.
And being forceful, respecting boundaries, but also setting your own, like, no, I'm going to see you.
Yeah.
But we're not going to spend this amount of time or this many days apart
Right.
or away.
Yeah, that's good. And then a lot of times when we're fortunate to have other caring family members and friends that will help you with along this way, I believe that if you can notice that a person is trying to segregate everyone from each other, then it's a little longer for them to get caught at whatever I'm trying to hide.
Right.
So I think being involved and being involved on the front lines is really, really important.
Being involved and transparent. I think when you have somebody that is trying to shut out or monopolize or, become more controlling, that's when you have to.
It's really hard. It's hard to defend a person. I guess it's much like when you're a mom. When you feel as though your kid doesn't have all the skill set they need yet to be out there in this mean world,
Right.
It's the same feeling, I can guarantee you from personal
It's a protective
experience.
factor,
I mean, my mom had lived in assisted living for a year and a half, and I saw her every day. However, the first time, I've probably said this a million times, but the first time walking out, it was like, I just left Grace at kindergarten. How will she make it without me? What is she going to do? Or is she going to be okay? Is she going to be happy? I don't know. But anyway, so all right, so we'll go back to the comments. So thank you for that. Hopefully we answered your question, Bex. If not, ask us some more.
For sure.
Go Mommy with Grace Bransom. I love my kid. She's so awesome. She's going to have to take care of me one day.
Yeah.
They say kids are going to pick our nursing homes. I love you, honey. You're the best. Thank you. All right. And Tiffany Jean Coochwood, that's my girl. Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany, for watching. And Mr. Allard of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood, your podcast is doing a lot of good for people here. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Because it's tough, and it's, having dealt with it so recently makes it maybe a little tougher, but it's a little more raw and it's a little more on my mind than it would be later. But we'll face this journey together the whole way through, and we'll survive together and we'll thrive together.
Absolutely.
So okay, so thanks for that. And did I see all the comments? Yeah, okay, we're good there. All right, so feel free to comment where you're watching from in the comments tonight and ask any questions that you may have. All right, let's get back to it. So we talked about recognizing the signs of abuse. We talked about recognizing the signs of decline.
Yeah.
Let's see. I hate saying that word. I'm gonna have to find another word.
What?
Besides it just sounds ignorant.
I know.
I hate it. I don't ever listen to myself again twice. But okay, and so that's a little bit about the patient. And then, did you want to go somewhere? Or you want to go into the caregiver?
I think even this is something that can go for patients and caregivers, but prioritizing physical and mental health, because your physical and mental health kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So when being a parent, right? And being a child as well, having these conversations, starting to change our lifestyles and way of living and things like that to be able to be more present in the future, very future focused.
Okay.
And, prioritizing physical health. Like I'm really pushing and encouraging in a nice way, not pushing meanly, but
You're never mean.
but pushing them to have a healthier lifestyle, which I think they really are.
Yeah.
My parents have always been moving. We were never the family that spent so much time at home. We were always doing something. But I think that over time, I know that my parents recently have started taking their physical health at a much more importance than they had in the past.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm watching them do. And I'm like, oh, well, if they're going to try to do that.
I know you're doing it too.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
So.
And so watching them do that, I'm like, well, why am I going to wait until then? Why not now?
Right.
So that I have the healthy habits and the lifestyle now, then.
You're just working that into your day as part of who you are.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really important. In fact, I don't know if Ella was there when we were talking about that. She said, she was working into her schedule, working out. And so we were looking at that. And I think that's so admirable at a young age to go ahead and know how important that is and to put it into make it part of your normal routine.
Yeah, I think that younger generations, not even mine, but I noticed that my sister and my child, what they're teaching in schools and just their focus is so much different than even when I was in school or whatnot. I mean, we had all kinds of stuff at our age, like access to that. I'm like, that's probably not the healthiest that we should have been doing.
Exactly.
But for them, they're, even just like simply as intake of water, right? I saw like a TikTok about why kids or younger generations look younger than what we did at that age.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have, what are the waters, the water bottles?
Oh, the Stanleys?
Yeah, the Stanleys
Good
and all that
Lord.
kind of stuff that they're walking around. Well, they're drinking a gallon of water a day. Well, that's going to keep you
Well, they look
a lot healthier than
exactly.
Right. And so I think younger generations are taking health, physical, mental, spiritual,
Self-care.
self-care.
I
Very
agree.
important. Yeah.
And I admire that. Although there's got to be the balance because, I'm all the other end of the spectrum where I'm like, you wake up and you're like, what's happened? I just got run over by a truck,
Right.
And you can learn from them and you can look at some of their habits. And I think that the same thing, but just like you get more out of something by watching somebody put action to their words rather than just, you ought to be healthy. You ought to be drinking water. You ought to be doing these things.
Right.
Why you're not doing it? So it's really easy to be a more positive influence when you're doing
Absolutely.
exactly what you expect from them because for their best interest.
Well, and that's something like even as a provider, like a therapist, when I'm talking to patients, I'm pretty open with my clients, and I'm like, yeah, you should probably be doing X, Y, and Z, and they'll give me because I work with teenagers too. They're like, oh, well, do you? I'm like,
Yes.
actually, yes,
Yeah.
I did. I got up at 5:30 this morning to work out. What did you do today?
The more before, yes, exactly. Yeah, well, I've noticed that in you, and you feel better when you do that. And you feel better about just setting a good example for everyone.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power in putting the walk to the talk or wherever you say like that.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, that I've noticed that as well, where the self-care is so important, and I'm quick to judge that. Like, who needs self-care? You haven't worked hard enough today. You didn't work long enough today.
Well, I think that's.
You haven't sacrificed enough today.
Well, I think that's like different generation, because even my generation too, we talk about like earning, right? I would do this in school, like, oh, I will watch this TV show. I will relax and use that as a reward.
Yeah. Same.
No,
Right.
it's not. No, you need to be able to incorporate that throughout. Obviously, not taking it to the extreme, and
Right.
because I'm a procrastinator too. So
Right, but I instantly feel guilty if I don't set that reward kind of thing.
I was actually having a conversation with my mom because, like I said earlier, they were never at home. We were always doing something.
Yeah.
And my mom had to apologize. She was like, I never taught you that it's okay to be still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
was
a
like,
good
no,
point.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to
It's
either.
hard,
It's very
'cause
difficult.
I feel guilty for not. I didn't do anything today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
or
like,
I'm not-
no, I actually like rested.
Right.
I read a book. Like,
Yeah.
that's nice.
But that feels so backwards to me, you know?
Yeah.
I do feel better when I can actually, I mean, I nearly have to just strap myself down to the couch if I'm going to sit and watch a TV or something. It's like, what is going on in my, you know, it takes 30 minutes for my mind to quit going where else I should be.
I try to mask that with being productive. Like I'll like trick myself and
do something while you're sitting there. So, or open the bills.
or doing laundry or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do this while I'm watching TV. So I'm having fun.
Right. Yeah. You need a counselor, Danielle. I know a good one. I'll give you her name. And you are a fantastic counselor, by the way.
Thank
I know
you.
You're not taking new patients right now, but and we've talked about kind of through the series that we will be available for people for in-person visits to further explore some of the topics that we are discussing. Yeah. And so I'm happy to tell you that the first in-person visit, which will feature you and our Medicare lady Angie Templeton, and at least Kyle Sherman with the long-term care insurance and a few others are going to be available on that. It will be September 19th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's come and go. Oh, thank you. And might I say, we had the best producer in the Hall of Podcast Land.
For sure.
Yeah, keep them right. So thank you, Taylor Perkey, for being awesome. And
always.
Yeah, and you too can do your own podcast if you want to here at the local Legends Lab in Crowley. So contact us on. No, seriously, it's obviously you don't have to be professional because I'm here, and so anybody can do it if I can do it. So I'm not sure what that looks like. No comment necessary there. Oh, Paula says we have no sound. I don't even know.
We should.
We should look at that. Just about the time I brag on Taylor, then we cuts us out. Shut us down. Just kidding. No, Taylor is fantastic, and this would not be possible without him. So anyway, thank you, Taylor. And I would encourage you to do your own podcast if you're passionate about something. Yeah. I mean, there's a place for everybody. So,
sure.
Okay. And let's talk about, we're going to go back to this one, key awareness of caregivers, mental health, et cetera. But let's talk about the communication process with your parent, with the providers for the people, your grandparents, parents, whatever, and kind of when is a good time to accompany them to, if they're beginning a journey that you can see is on a fast track, you wouldn't want to send them to doctor's visits by themselves. You know, it's nerve-wracking enough when you're at the doctor to remember everything and write it down. It's nerve-wracking when you can't remember to answer the questions, although that's just the way it is. So if you can become involved with their care, I would say that's a good thing. Is there anything you could recommend there in those for the mental health aspect of communicating with, becoming the parent's parent in that situation, sort of where the dynamic changes?
I think that's, kind of going back to starting the conversations early on. I really push, and I don't get into my parents' stuff, but I ask them, like, if something were to happen, releases of information need to be on file. So even for me, I add my partner, I add my sister, and I add my parents automatically. Yeah. At the very beginning, who do you want information to be released to? Right. Just in case something happens.
That's really important because sometimes we don't know how someone feels. I mean, we may think they're good with Susie Joe over here, but we didn't know that they had a falling out 5 years ago. Right. So let's, you got to get back on track and really be one with them and be with them on that. Yeah. Well, and that leads us to the next question. Really, I was going to ask about some of the more specific documents as far as we're all over the place as usual, which it does not surprise anyone. But the legal and financial considerations, just what you talked about, just get it in writing.
Absolutely.
Nothing has to be fancy and high dollar attorneys. It's helpful, but you do not have to just know, find out and just really connect with that person. Again, the community, is so important around this issue.
I think also just making it part of your routine, whether you put it on a calendar or, a reminder, but at least every couple years, every 5 years, 2, 3, not too long, but also, you probably don't want to review it every year. It might be helpful. You never know. I mean, a year is a long time span. But reviewing all of those documents, making sure that what you want is in there and nothing has changed. Right. So that when the time comes, that it's up to date.
Yeah, that's important because people have children. People lose children. People come into your family. They go out of your family. So that is a topic that should be revisited as often as possible. Yeah, I found that in kind of entering into this situation, people are usually, so far, people have been typically moved into, advanced into these conversations with a life event of someone in their family. Yeah, you don't think anything's going to happen until it happens to you. and
Right,
then it
exactly.
has, and now what?
Right.
So that's important to put that on a consistent basis of somehow, wherever you want to manage that with your family. And then you can also take that opportunity to do it for yourself, even though you're young. You know, this has prompted me to really try to get it together for my child because
Absolutely.
she's got a life too, you know, and I don't mind doing a thing that I have to do for our family, but it is difficult sometimes because life doesn't stop just because yours did.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
that makes a whole different thing. So,
Yeah.
so that's important. And I think it's important to understand what those legal and financial things are. Just the terms, you know, what is a power of attorney? What is,
Right.
we've got a lawyer coming on talking about that. But, you know, these are things that you'll need to become familiar with, the terms living wills, DNRs.
Yeah.
How do we feel about hospice? You know, all those things are so
Right.
important.
And you can use counselors. You know, you don't have to have like a long-standing relationship with a counselor. You can go into counseling with a parent and do family counseling to have these hard conversations.
Right.
And you can have, if your parent or the caregiver is in counseling, you can bring in the other party. If it's the patient that's going, you know, before they're the patient, right?
Right.
Going to counseling, making sure that the therapist is up to date. I ask all my parents to make sure that they have the right releases of information. It's probably every time I review a treatment plan or I update that, which is like anywhere from 90 to 60 days.
Okay.
I review that, make sure that all ROIs, releases of information, all the information that they want out there is up to date.
Right. Yeah, I think that's super important. And, you know, and maybe, and a lot of people were going backwards, but when we were discussing like who wants who to have what, I'm noticing that a little change in the trend is that people are wanting to give things to their loved ones while they're still here and to watch them enjoy it. So I think that's kind of a, you know, inheritance a little bit early or whatever is important for you to carry on. They're approaching some of those things a little sooner, but I don't know if that's out of just, you know, the pure joy that it brings to the people who want to give,
Possibly.
or if they are nervous about they're not going to do it. The whomever is helping is not going to do it correctly, or if I will be unable to do that. You know, so a lot of reasons that you could be on that trail. But okay, now let's talk about. I hope they don't feel like we're kind of skimming over these. Oh, good. Paula's okay.
Good.
Whew, thank you. I knew Taylor couldn't have made a mistake. He did that one time almost, but yeah. Love you, Taylor. So anyway, we're glad you joined us, Paula. Paula's awesome. She teaches CPR and first aid training at our office.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, they're funny. Okay.
She's great.
Yeah, she is great. We have a lot of great people at the hub right now, actually.
We do.
And so that's
That
why I'm
community
excited.
is really great.
It is. We built community there.
Yes,
And that's what we
it
want
is.
to do around this topic.
Yes.
So again, if you didn't hear it a while ago, we are having an in-person event. The first one is on September 19th, and that is from 4 to 7. Okay, so now let's move on to the caretaker more specifically. I know that I'm a huge advocate for counseling and therapy. I think it's wonderful. And I had not been too good about doing those things in the last several years. But then there was like this little, you know, you get a counselor because you're. So anyway, I think I begged you to find me a spot. So I became your cancellation girl, which was huge for me.
Yeah.
That sounds bad, doesn't it? Okay.
It might be an inside joke, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I had started seeing, just being around the office, started seeing how stressed you were and trying to offer what I could.
And it was
Unfortunate that I didn't have more availability on my schedule, but I would still, even if I didn't have that full hour block, still check in with you and make sure.
Yes.
Because
that's been very valuable.
it was a lot, and I could see it taking a toll.
Thank you. Yeah, it does. And I don't want anyone to be confused about that. I regret having to do those things. It's an honor to do those things.
Yeah.
You know, but it does wear on a person.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, it's stressful.
It is stressful. Yeah. And when a person is so loved as she was, so many people had interest in her. And it's really important, if you care about that person, anything you're dealing with maybe needs to be set aside. And let's think about caring for that person. We can deal with those other things later. So, but in a highly emotional situation, there may be no problems, and all of a sudden there's problems because everybody's emotionally invested in this, and it's tough. So, so we were fortunate, and I was very fortunate to have them. Okay, so Sean Sullivan says, "Hi, I had a disability, mental health, and movie theater question." Nice. So he was tuning in the beginning. I don't know how you want. I don't know what the question is exactly. Well, Sean, if you can be more specific, that'd be awesome. We'll be here gabbing for a minute. And sometimes the disability, when your mind is right, it's not called a disability. It's a different ability. And I think one of the ladies here in the community is really great about helping with that narrative. Getting or what do you call that? Not with your mindset, but your mindset. Yeah, depending on where your mindset is, and the more tired you get, the more exhausted you get, the tougher it is to have a good mindset. So, Sean, I would be interested in if you could help me. I'm not super smart into making that a question, but anyway, mental health is. I'm sure he's just. Again, here we are. I have no words.
It's okay.
It happens all the time.
It's all right,
but not as bad as last time. Okay, so those caretakers and those caregivers are prioritizing the health of both people, because the reality is when we're rested and we know you can't take care of other people unless you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, but jump right in the middle of it. Right. And then try to figure it out.
Exactly.
Because that's what I can't really iterate enough is that things can change so momentarily, whether you're expecting them or not, whether you're on a trajectory, anything can change. And that changes everything. And the pressure for when things aren't clear about what the person you're helping is wanting, that's extremely stressful.
Absolutely.
Although we know what's logical, we know our people, but when you get so tired and you get so...
Knowing and doing are two different things.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure.
It is.
And
it is.
But it's also a huge honor.
Yeah,
someone chooses you to do that. And I remember at one point asking, being a caregiver for my mother, was asking the attorney, are you sure she wanted me for this job? You sure she wanted me to do this job? Are you positive? And he responded twice, because I was pretty over myself. And he said, no. He said, you're perfectly equipped for this job. She chose you for this job. Now do it to the best of your ability. You're supposed to be where you're at. Because I was questioning if I was together enough to do this for her, So I think that's something to consider as well. Okay, so let's talk about maybe some self-care strategies for the caregiver, if we can. I know everybody's situation will be different, but just in a nutshell.
Well, I think trying not to change too much all at once, right? When you're building healthy habits, you're not trying to change your entire lifestyle. And this is, taking on being a caregiver is going to change your lifestyle, right? I mean, it's going to, flip your world upside down.
Right.
So changing one thing, and it could be something that moves with you or flows into the routine you have. For example, I have a busy routine. I'm not a caretaker, but this would be one of my self-care things. I listen to audiobooks. It's something that gets me to tune out life. Okay. And kind of pull myself from things. I can listen to it in the car while I'm driving. I can listen to it, in the waiting room, whatever. Finding something that works with you. Okay. It could be moving your body, right? That's super helpful. Journaling, right? You can take a journal with you everywhere. They have app journals, different prompts that they have on there. Whatnot, so that, everybody's got their phone with them. Yeah. Being able to journal on the go, finding things, self-care that's on the go. That way you're not feeling guilty, right? Like you're sitting down, being stationary, taking time away from them. Right. So finding things that move with you. Okay.
And there's a certain degree of including your person to do these things with you. You can, alter your what do you call it? The difficulty, the degree of difficulty. And so you can include them in that as well if your time is short.
For sure.
I would think. Okay. So what else did you say about prioritizing the time? No, I lost where it was.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Well, I think that it's even more important to do, you're moving your body, you're moving your mind by doing something you enjoy. I find though that when the topic is what it is, I'm always listening to audiobooks on the topic. Like I just can't get enough. I'm just looking for strength from every, avenue.
For sure. And that's helpful, but you also want to take care of yourself too. And you've got to take a break, right? And that's finding either somebody or someone or, a group of people, support groups that are out there, finding a therapist or even just a friend, that can help remind you to slow down.
Yeah.
And take that time
And not
you.
not be irritated with those people who are telling you to take care of yourself.
Right.
Because if they're close enough, I felt at one point I was like, I feel so bad for my friends because all I ever do is have a chaos and have this destruction that's just an ongoing, I'm not going to have any friends if all I have to do is talk about my problems, because nobody wants to hear that all the time, but I'm fortunate.
Yeah,
and then
but
I
it's
have
not,
you. So, and really,
it's not permanent though. You know,
Right.
even if it's long term, it's still not permanent in the sense that the chaos is going to subside.
yeah.
And it could happen in a tragic way, or, things start to level off, the chaos at the beginning, and then things start to, kind of level out afterwards.
Yeah.
But the friends that are going to stay with you are the ones that you want with you, right? You don't want somebody who's going to, and it's hard and harsh to say, but if they're not going to be supportive of the time that you're in, and either pick up with you in the chaos or help you slow down the chaos in a supportive way.
That's true, but that's difficult because when someone asks you, how can I help you? What can I do? And they're sincere. I mean, I'm so fortunate that people are so kind to all of us, but what can I do to help? I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know where to begin to ask for help.
I think that's a normal question people ask, but
some people don't mean it, but
don't.
the majority of people in our village meant it.
They do, and I think it's rewording that question of you're in chaos right now. What do you need right now?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
What is happening in the next hour, 2 hours? I've got 2 hours I can spare. What can I do? What are you doing right now that I can support with?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What can I support in? How can I jump in with you?
That's a very good response. I like that. And ironically, another friend of mine was going through this with his mom during our time, and actually he lives out of state, and so I looked after her quite a bit. And I remember when she declined really rapidly, and she had made her choice. She was done, and so she was on her path, and he had come to stay with her. And he was so good with her at that time. And I remember him calling me because I didn't live far, and he was just nearly in tears. And he said, "Can you just come sit with her for 30 minutes? I just need to lay down for 30 minutes."
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely. But that was such a tough situation that within about 20 minutes, I'm like, man, I can't take any more of this, so I can't imagine what he was going through.
Right.
It was just, he was kind of jumped in and when it really got tough. So I guess I could think about that from another person's standpoint. Because again, I'm like, what do you need?
Right.
And it was everyone I cared about was already in bed and tucked in.
Right.
And so that allowed me to do that. So that's important, I think, to understand how to ask for that help, how to really sit down and figure out what it is. And then, think about what you would do if you were put your shoes on the other foot. I mean, put your... Right.
And I think also when you receive that question, right, if you're I'm asking, right, how can I help you? Don't be ashamed to say, and take the help.
Yeah.
I need you to do X, Y, Z. Can you do that? That would be super helpful. Doesn't have to be big, right? You can find something that's smaller. Right. It could be as simple as hey, I haven't, gotten gas in my car.
I haven't showered in 3 days.
Right. Can you
right.
Something small, or, whatever, one errand, or, things like that can just take time.
They can. And it's, again, community. It's important to build that community. It's important to appreciate the community that you're in, and vice versa. Okay. Oh, thank you, Sean. Just subscribe, like, and share. We have one subscriber. Yeah. Thank you. Well, hopefully we can make a difference.
There it is.
Thank you. Wow. Very energetic tonight. Thank you. Love it. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks, Sean. All right. So now let's talk about the mental health of the caregiver again. We talked about the people that you know, the people that you surround yourself with, and then go ahead.
Boundaries.
Ugh. Yeah. What is that? What's a boundary? Tell us more, Danielle.
Come on.
I know.
I'm a big believer of boundaries. As somebody who used to not have any, it's okay. Boundaries are okay. They're okay for yourself.
Necessary.
They're extremely necessary for yourself as the caregiver and the parent. Protecting them, but also protecting yourself in that as well. So to boundaries. They're super important.
That's a whole nother show too.
Yeah.
When we talked earlier about the kids that are younger than us or the generations younger, the things that I really admire, they're really good with boundaries. We can learn a lot from those millennials and those Gen whatevers and all the things. But seriously, I mean, when you start feeling old, no, I know, and I learn a lot from you. And it's a beautiful thing. I learned a lot from Ella. It's difficult because I'm like this hurricane, who encounters most of humanity, and it's like everything comes to a very abrupt stop. And we're forced to look at it, but it's good.
Hurricane of sunshine, though.
Hurricane
You're always
sunshine.
bright. Yeah,
that's right. I love Danielle. You were awesome. You were awesome.
Every time I see you, you're always bright, even if you're stressed out.
Well, thank you.
You're always bright. Yeah.
Well, that's tough too. That's a whole shame and guilt deal. Yeah. Like, I can't bring everybody down. Because sometimes I fired myself back previously because I was afraid my bad attitude would come out and get on somebody else. Now, that's selfish and that's not true, but that's the way I felt.
I think that's hard, right? Especially if you're when you don't have the support, right? And that's why I would be like, let's talk.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I can see it. Let's talk. But finding the people, that
you can trust. Yeah. And I think that was, again, I'm very blessed in that department. So,
but learning how to say no or say yes. Right, because it could be the opposite, right?
No, you don't want a complete sentence.
It is.
I'm telling myself that.
Thank you.
No is a complete sentence.
Yep.
It's so important, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And you have to sleep.
What?
You have to sleep. You have to have what? You have to be able.
In a bed?
Yeah, I know.
In your pajamas?
Yes.
Every night.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very effective.
For more than 2 or 3 hours. Sleep and just basic necessities as a human are boundaries too.
That's what they say. That's what they say. Yeah. That is so true. And I think that is very important. And I think that you should listen to what Danielle's saying sooner than later. And so knowing what you just said, that's one of the things I'm working on is a schedule.
Yeah.
And it's fun. So now I don't want to get out of bed in the morning and then being so late, everything's shifting because I'm doing everyone else's stuff until business hours and doctor's hours and all that stuff. And then here's my second win about 5 o'clock when that person's taking a rest, you gear back up and you roll forward again. Yep. And then it's really strange. It's very easy to get stuck in the bad or the not helpful patterns.
Fair.
Or was for me.
Spreading things out. Not everything has to be completed in one day.
That's what they say too. I've heard that. Is that true?
It is.
Okay. Oh, yay. Thanks, Sean. We got 4 subscribers.
Yay.
Okay. Oh, let's see. Sean's telling us something here. Having autism myself in my past, I have multiple times felt suicidal, but movies at the theater helped me. Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love it. Just getting out of your head a little bit.
Yes.
I love that, Sean.
I think that was when we were talking about coping skills.
Yeah. So I wasn't smart enough to put it all together, but yeah.
No, it's okay.
I was thinking he needed popcorn for our show. I was like, well, we're entertaining, but not that entertaining. I
don't know about you.
Hey, you never know. Depends on what kind of mindset you have.
Yes.
But, it's funny because I think that I'm totally uneducated on this, but the little experience I have with autism is that there's so many incredible strengths the person has. And it's, again,
so smart.
It's not like I understand that it's a disability or whatever, but your mindset can put that into something that gives you power and gives you value for yourself.
So I work a lot with people with autism, and I really hate to use disability. Like you said, it's a different ability. Their brains work so differently, but it's so fascinating.
Right. It's fascinating.
And they're so smart.
It's fascinating if you look at it that way, but I'm sure it's probably really frustrating is the person who has that condition.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like Sean's got a good handle on, he's worked that out and as you grow and you
movies are very helpful.
Yeah, they really are. I just watched a series about a private investigator that used movies to solve his crimes or whatever. And it was interesting though, because the way that it was all laid out, I can see how that would be a good thing, and just seeing what other people are experiencing. And I think with as open as the media has been about these things, it's probably really empowering for someone like Sean, who's got what they would call autism, able to see other people living lives in different ways that you maybe hadn't thought of, because society makes you feel sometimes as though it's a malady, and it's just different.
Yep.
So we're glad you're here, Sean. Okay. I don't know who he is, but I love him already, I think.
Yes.
Okay. So we talked about that now. And, I think that, again, no expert, but the suicide, some experience. And I think that's one of those things, maybe you don't recognize that in its entirety until you are affected by it. your kid's kid, or till your somebody hits home.
For sure. I deal with suicide on a daily basis.
Yes.
I've struggled with it myself, but as a treatment provider, that's one of the main things that I see on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I'm very comfortable talking about that. But I remember even in my program when I was getting my education, talking about suicide was very like taboo, like, oh my gosh. And it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't.
And I'm saying that in a way that like people struggle with it so much that it should be able to be open. It shouldn't be something that like, obviously it's concerning, right? You want to take it with, importance,
right?
But don't, you don't want to be
bamboozled,
about it. Yeah,
that's tough.
But making it very common and open, to be able to receive that. And, there is help, right? There's different types of suicidal thoughts, right? And different types of intrusive thoughts. You have passive suicidal thoughts that they don't want to do anything. They really don't want to do anything. Yeah. But it just sucks right now.
Well, no one wakes up one day and says, I hope one day I'm this bad ending.
Right. Right.
There's a point where you miss the mark, and you don't know where it shifts over.
Right. And you have the passive thoughts, and then you have the intrusive thoughts. Like, I wonder what this would be.
Yeah.
That's a little different. Obviously, if you're having intrusive thoughts regularly, seek out professional. But if you are in an active crisis, like you're like, oh yeah, no, I really do want to do this. Call, 911, go to a local emergency room. All inpatient psychiatric facilities are 24 hours. You can walk in. You don't have to go to an emergency room. You can just walk in and get an assessment.
Yeah.
Most of them, if not all, are free. So even if you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, like I'm okay. I just need to know I'm okay.
Right. Yeah. I think that's huge.
Yeah. That's
very huge. And, it's so disheartening to see a person or family member or friend say, I knew they were struggling, but I didn't know it was that.
Right.
And then that's such a final.
Right. No, if you see them struggling, don't wait for
seriously.
Depression or anxiety or whatever.
You have to risk the uncomfortableness for sure in that situation.
For sure.
Hey, Taylor, if we can you put up the suicide hotline before we're done, the 800 number?
Yes.
And I think there's a local number too for that, but I'm sorry for not being prepared for that.
One for a text. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a text like
8. I think it's
811?
988. I think it is.
Okay. All right, we'll try to find out for you. Or if you know, please comment.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay, so that's another. Sean is offering a resource there. Regal fundraising campaign supporting disabilities and suicide solutions.
Yes,
that's awesome. We ummed together just then.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But something that's really cool. I did this in my internship, but more counties and more police departments are doing this as well, where they have mental health units in the police department. So when you do call 911 and it's a behavioral or a mental health issue, they dispatch specific units trained in that. And I was very fortunate in my internship to help train some police officers to be able to do that. Yeah. Having conversations with them, they were like, oh,
that's way overdue.
It is.
Yeah.
But because we even had the conversation about, well, do you think therapists would go out with police officers? And I was like, I'd be the one that would throw me in the chaos. Right. I'm good with it. But so Burleson actually has.
I was about to say, I was talking to Colin the other day, and they're really cracking down on getting the resources available to people.
They also have a guardianship program here in Burleson.
Okay.
Where if you have a kiddo that is struggling with mental health or has a disability, autism, or things like that, you can provide a profile to the police department with their strengths, things they like, things like that. So if they are in a crisis, or the police
the right approach, because that changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really cool.
And that's important. And I'm proud of Burleson for doing that. They're
absolutely.
They're really putting their efforts into that. And if you don't, Colin, Colin's last name, Gregory.
I would love to be.
Colin Gregory.
Colin Gregory. I forgot his last name. He's amazing. And as you're sitting here talking about that, I would love to have him come on the show.
For sure.
Because they're trying to tackle those issues as well as domestic abuse.
Yes.
And they're being really creative in the ways that they're getting to people who need the help.
Yeah.
So I think that very proud of them for doing that. So I'd love to sit down with Colin and the chief or somebody sometime and we can talk about those, because you don't know what you don't know. And, we live in such a fast-paced society when you've got, you're single parenting, you've got kids at home, and you're just trying to get everyone fed and get everyone situated and get this paid for and that paid for. And I believe that their input in this community is going to make a difference. And I'd love to join. Maybe they can join with us in our mission.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a lot of resources out there. Getting in touch with your local MHMR. You don't have to have insurance for that.
Yeah.
They do a lot of county work. And free services.
Well, Tarrant County is pretty rich in resources.
Johnson
County is not so much, but we're getting better.
Yes, but we do have MHMR. And so Pecan Valley.
It's called something else now. It's not MHMR. It's
They still call it MHMR.
Okay.
They just don't use the old term of what MHMR used to be called.
Okay.
They've changed the acronym for it, but it's still MHMR. But they use Pecan Valley.
Okay.
I believe it's in. I think they have a location in Cleburne.
Okay. Cleburne
but they have
to be a little bit better or central resources there.
So
that's interesting. Yeah, I believe that it's just so tough. Like it's such a taboo topic. People don't want to talk about it, and there's all the shame and the guilt around it.
Right.
But I do believe that we're entering into a time where people are allowed the space to do it more so than they used to.
I think COVID really changed perspectives on mental health. I think everybody was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, we're sitting around not doing a whole lot and I'm struggling. I need to talk to someone.
Exactly.
And now it's so COVID did help in a sense of letting virtual counseling be what it is.
Right.
Because virtual counseling was not.
Yeah.
It was very taboo to do virtual counseling.
Well, it's like, how can you really get into it if you're
right?
Didn't feel personal.
I remember in my ethics class we were talking about virtual counseling. I was like, oh, no, we'll never
way.
do that. No, that's not great.
Yeah.
And now I even offer that. Like it's most, if not all, counselors
anything's better than nothing.
Yeah.
If
absolutely.
you need it to whatever distance you need to go to get it. You need to go and get it.
Well, and you don't have to wait until you're in chaos to get help.
It's okay to inquire.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask questions.
Right.
And it's okay to find out the information.
Well, it's preventative care too.
Yeah.
As a counselor, like I would love to help somebody prevent distress. Yeah. Like if you come in before, so your parents have this diagnosis, come in then. Don't wait until
don't wait till it fully sets in.
Right. Or everything's falling apart or whatever. You don't have to be in a crisis or wait until, everything is at, an extreme to get help.
Right. Because emotions are higher, stress is higher.
Right.
It's just more dangerous the longer you go without recognizing it. But I think that's the hugest challenge is acknowledging that there could be a problem in my family.
Fair.
There could be a problem in my house.
Right.
In my house.
Right.
In my family.
Right.
Oh, but we're this or we're that or we have a certain this to,
Well, and I think that's where younger generations are becoming more.
Their strength.
Yeah. Because I remember my grandpa was like, nobody's going to pay to talk. You're going to make a career out
watch
of that?
me.
No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see me, and I know he would be 100% ecstatic and proud of me. And I would love to be like, hey, I did make a living doing this.
Right. Exactly.
But I also hate that I have to make a living doing this. Like, but I want to help people.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the thing. But yeah, I think it's becoming more open and more accepting to receive help. I don't see as many people. I'm also seeing older generations too seeking help when they're like, oh, I probably should have received services when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah. Lots of trauma, lots of undealt with trauma.
Oh, for sure.
Seems like it's coming out of nowhere right now. And I think that's a lot due to COVID. I think it's a lot due to our younger generation about being brave enough to have these conversations, being brave enough to say no, being brave enough to say, I got to take care of me too.
Yeah.
That's really huge.
Yeah.
And so tough, know, so I do believe it takes everyone.
It does.
At the end of the day, what's the worst somebody can tell you? No. Or they don't know. You know, somebody else will. And I think that building that community around it is so important for survivors, for people who are in the thick of it, for people who are in the aftermath of it. And I would take advantage of the resources. In fact, one of the places, like I'm actively seeking a grief group, you know, a specific grief group, not for with a group.
Yeah,
I guess a grief group would have a group, wouldn't it?
Right.
A group of, So I think that's important. And I've not experienced that firsthand. I've only suggested people do that, and I've only supported the idea. And now I find myself where I'm going to do that too.
I love group therapy.
Yeah. It's
Group
good.
therapy. I remember in
You don't feel
school,
alone.
No, absolutely. You learn through other people's experiences. Like you said, you're not alone.
Right.
But having, and then you also have accountability.
Yeah.
That sometimes in individual counseling, even with the therapist, you don't have that accountability, but you grow attached to those people.
Right.
And you gain that support. But then they also call you out too when you get, you get to a point with the group. They're like, hey,
Right.
you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You need to do X, Y, Z,
Yeah. That's hard to hear, though, when you don't want to hear it.
Yes.
But I think that the beauty of doing it with a group, like you talked about, is that you don't feel alone. You're seeing what other people are going through, and you're like, oh, well, maybe that's normal. Okay, so I'm identifying with you.
It normalizes a lot of things.
Yeah, it really does. And then you understand. I mean, it's a huge weight off your shoulders when you know somebody's walking this whole journey with you, and you can walk together.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you don't have to. I don't know. We're so out of time. I can't believe this. The time is over like 30 minutes ago. But anyway, so we're going to have a lot more topics we want to discuss. Danielle, in closing, could you tell us maybe what a couple of key points that are most important from your professional outlook?
I think one, seeking help.
Okay.
Whenever you can. There are a lot of resources out there. Use them, search them. I think self-care is really important. However, you can implement, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes a day, that's going to do
huge.
more than nothing, right? Anything is better than nothing. And boundaries.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to agree with you. And if you're one of those people like me who doesn't, seeking help is not a problem, but learning what it is that I need for someone to help me with is a challenge. So if you're at a point where you can kind of foresee those things, or maybe go ahead and build up your narrative on those things about how could somebody help you if you found yourself in that situation, be a little bit more prepared to ask for it.
For sure.
So, and then that also builds your community, which is huge. And I know it sounds repetitive. I keep coming back to it, but
no, it is. I think everybody needs a community.
Yeah, absolutely.
With anything.
Sean's going to be in our community. I can tell you that.
Yes.
So Taylor has listed some of the resources, the numbers there for you.
Absolutely.
I want you to
He started
utilize
a
those.
disability-only suicide hotline. I love that.
I love it. Yeah. Man, there's just so many things. People want to do so amazing things. And again, building community around that, we could really encourage Sean to do that and support him.
For sure.
I don't know
Absolutely.
what that, not financially support you, Sean. I'm sorry, I don't have any money. But I would be happy to be your greatest cheerleader on that, And what did you say? He's writing a book too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let's write a fictional book, yeah.
I guess I can read
I
out
love
loud.
that. Historical figures with disabilities.
Yeah, there's so many. We don't talk about them because they're leaders, so they're invincible, and they go on this pedestal. So Sean,
representation is super important.
Yes. Oh, Manisa, there's my mom in love. Manisa is Grace's husband's mom.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. I love them. I'm glad they're coming into our family and our family community.
Yay.
So thank you, Manisa. We do appreciate your time, and we know that it's valuable. So I'm glad that you joined us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have you again.
Yeah.
And then again, you'll be available for some of the personal meetings that we're going to have. So again, we're just building community. There's no obligation to that kind of stuff. We're just creating a space that's safe for you to come to and ask the questions that maybe you're afraid to ask, and all those things.
I'd be happy to help.
So always open for suggestions and questions. So if you have those, please drop those in the comments. And again, Danielle, thank you so much. We will see you often, and we'll see you again. So please don't forget to subscribe and like and join, and come see us on the 19th, which is a Thursday.
It is a Thursday.
From 4 to 7. And we'll even have snacks. How about that?
Everybody loves snacks.
Everybody loves snacks.
Yes.
Of course, now I have to get gluten-free snacks too, Ella. That's okay. We'll do it. They taste
Some
good.
of those are really good.
I know. They're very good.
I had a lot of gluten-free stuff in my life.
You did?
That's good. Yeah.
I probably need to do that. I'd feel better. But anyway, as I digress, many shows later. Okay, so thank you all, and we will see you next week on Kicking It with Camille.